Right, so recently I've been keeping my eyes on a new source called Apple LE25108-706. Very catchy username, but anyways, this guy seems to be giving us tidbits about the iMac Pro, because yes, apparently we could see a new iMac Pro with Apple Silicon launch this year, and weirdly enough, this source somehow seems to be connected with Luke Miani, the YouTuber who is now a leaker too. So a lot of interesting things about this account. And so let's just delve into the details they give us about the iMac Pro and whether we can trust this information. So let's begin by addressing a question a lot of you guys might have, and that is, why would Apple bring back the iMac Pro? Well, personally, I think the iMac Pro brand is coming back, but the iMac Pro, as we know, won't be coming back. So this won't be a product in between the bigger iMac and the Mac Pro. Instead, this will be the new bigger iMac. And so the regular iMac name will only be used for the 24-inch model. And this makes a ton of sense in my opinion, because the iMac branding has been used for not only the consumer iMacs, but also the prosumer 27-inch model. And I do feel that might have been confusing for some users. And so having both physical differences and of course differences in the actual name is a good idea to help people understand that the base iMac is for the average Joe and then the bigger model is for the prosumer. Since let's be honest, the 27-inch model has always catered towards prosumers, and so using the Pro branding would be fitting. And of course, we have seen the regular and Pro naming scheme across various lineups, like the iPhone, the AirPods, and so the iMac following suit makes a ton of sense. Anyways, let's now delve into the leaks. So basically, Apple LE25108-706, the greatest username of all time, basically said that the iMac Pro is literally the nicest thing he's ever seen. So it seems he has images of the iMac Pro, and renders by Ian said they look blurry, so maybe that validates this whole leak, I'm not sure. But sadly, these renders aren't public as of the time of filming, so yeah, we have no clue how this iMac Pro looks. Thankfully, Luke has tweeted a few interesting things that suggest he has seen these images. So he begins by saying, "I hope you like chins." So basically that means that we are seeing a chin on the iMac Pro much like on the iMac. This seems perfectly plausible because, of course, in the past, the smaller and bigger iMac has stayed very similar in terms of design, and so I'm expecting the chin and the slimmer design to carry over to the iMac Pro, though do note, I'm not expecting the white bezels to come over, since obviously white bezels are synonymous with the consumer level Macs. This is clearly built for prosumers since it's the iMac Pro, so expect a space gray option and black bezels, which should keep a lot of you guys happy. However, Luke also shared this image, and yes, on face value it seems incredibly weird, but obviously he's referring to the chin on the new iMac Pro, and the fact the bigger Luke face has a smaller chin possibly refers to a smaller chin coming to the iMac Pro, so it should still have a chin, but it should be smaller. Now this could mean two things. Number one, much like Max Tech referred to in their video, obviously if you think about it, the same chin on a bigger display is obviously going to be smaller because it takes up less space on the front since it's a much larger machine. And so if Apple does do this, then obviously they could fit all the components of the computer in the chin, much like they do on the 24-inch iMac. However, another pretty obvious possibility is that the chin is actually smaller, so if that is the case, then possibly Apple makes the chassis a little thicker and puts the computer components behind the actual iMac, much like we see on today's models, and then maybe the smaller chin is used for better speakers. The next pretty sus tweet from Apple LE25108-706 is that he does suggest that there is a possibility we could see the iMac Pro at WWDC. So this stems from two things. Number one, he says that new hardware is ready, it's coming soon. Now yes, I know this tweet is pretty vague and could be referring to many things, but then he responded to this tweet where me and Gavin were basically talking about the space gray iMac Pro accessories were discontinued, and this was done pretty randomly, especially considering that there are existing space gray Macs still available to buy, so you could use those accessories with those Macs. But then Gavin suggested that maybe there are new space gray iMac Pro accessories coming very, very soon. And then Apple Lee basically put the eyes emoji, which basically means that he knows something, and he's referring to maybe iMac Pro launching as soon as WWDC. Luke also said the same thing, where he said there would be different space gray accessories. Now obviously both of these guys do not give us any time frames, but the fact Apple discontinues these space gray accessories literally a few weeks away from Dub does sort of lead me to believe that there is a chance we could see the iMac Pro at WWDC. Especially since we have had a ton of leaks on the M1X chip and the M1X MacBook Pro debuting at WWDC. Maybe Apple plans to release the whole M1X lineup at WWDC, and so that would include the iMac Pro. As for existing info on the iMac Pro, there really is not a lot. So we had a leak from Jeff Poo that said that the iMac Pro should get mini LED in 2021. We also have those details on the M1X, which basically say the cores and the overall architecture should be very similar to the M1, but you have more of everything. So in these leaked benchmarks, it showcases an M1X that has 12 power cores and 4 efficiency cores, but I'm expecting the iMac Pro to have more. Maybe the base version has 12 and then the more expensive versions have 16. I'm also expecting Apple's first discrete GPU in the iMac Pro. Maybe they'll use a different die for the GPU and a multi-chip package, just so the M1X is still an SoC, much like the M1 for better efficiency, but you get a much beefier GPU. Though do note, those leaked benchmarks do show a 16-core integrated GPU with the M1X, so that alone should be way more powerful than the M1 GPU. Now, of course, we have heard about the M1X processor going into mass production as we speak, and apparently gearing for a July release, which would make sense with a WWDC release. However, do bear in mind, Mark Gurman, a way more credible source, did say that some iMac models should launch at the end of the year, so maybe he's referring to the iMac Pro, and maybe we see it at the end of the year with the Mac Pro Mini. Now, I do want to end the video by saying that obviously I'm assuming a ton of things here and the sources aren't very credible. In fact, they have no credibility whatsoever, so take the information with a grain of salt. But also, I do have an inkling that maybe Luke is trolling us, because he did clarify that he won't be leaking full time, and then says, this is an interesting test. Why does he call it a test? That's a very interesting way of wording this whole scenario. So I'm thinking that maybe he's trolling us and maybe Luke is Apple Lee 25 whatever numbers, and he's just spewing fake info to see how gullible people are and how far the news travels. That could very much be a possibility, so do bear that in mind once again. But yeah, pretty interesting stuff on the iMac Pro, and I am certainly excited to see this machine. But tell me in the comments below, are you planning to buy this iMac Pro? Anyways, I'm going to end it here. Thank you for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe for the latest Apple news and rumors. Check out the video in the icon above about AirPods 3 launching next week. And on that note, I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya, peeps.